Hi there, this is Paul Thompson from Spitfire Audio. I'm going to talk you through today the new functionality update for Sable. This brings in a new organisation of the library, the way that it's laid out, but also some functionality from Mural and a couple of new things as well. So I'll go through these very quickly. So first of all, the layout. As you'll see, we've split this up into different sections. The core palette gives you the straightforward longs and shorts, pizzicatos and things like that. You'll see that the capability matrix here tells you what is available in this. For example, in this longs patch, you've got non-vib and vib, but you don't have multi-vib. There are combination patches, so if you have volumes 1 and 3 and you load the same core palette for volume 1s we're in at the moment, you'll see that now you have the multi-vib is in there as well. So it always tells you what you've actually got to play with. So the decorative palette, next up, this is things that are kind of phrase based, like trems, trills, effects, runs, slides. If we load up the volume 3 patch, you'll see that you've got things like the minor third trills, measured trems, all that kind of stuff. So that gives you a quick overview. If we look at the, actually let's look at the legato performance palette first of all. Now this shows the basic legatos here, fingered bowed and portamento. And then we've got, well, actually I'll talk to you about the velocity based rules here. If I command click the little white arrow, it tells me what the rule is for this, and it says activate this fingered legato when the velocity is between 20 and 83. So you can change all of these if you want to, but these are set up the same way that they run at the moment in the current version of Sable. Now if you want to stop it using one of these, you can either switch it off by holding Alt and clicking the arrow. So I'll show you how that I can do that now. I can click on those and switch them off and then switch them back on again. So that will ignore the rules. If you Alt Shift click, all of them turn off. Obviously we need to turn these ones off because we're not using those two in this patch. And you can also purge the articulation, so it will ignore the rules for that one if it's purged, and it will just stick between these two. So let's have a quick look at the decorative legato palette. Now this gives you anything that's kind of non-standard. So this might be legatos for trems, sul G, which is in volume 4, and things like that. So that gives you your palettes for the kind of basic layouts. We've also got a light palette here, which is a quick and easy way. Quick starter. It's got the kind of basic articulations that you might need. If you're working on a laptop or something like that, this is a good one to just quickly get up and sketching very quickly. So we've got the usual stuff in here, the cog brushes, you can see, and the individual brushes as before. The volume is always going to be in the name of the patch, so you can see which one you should be loading. If we go back up, other brushes, the time machine palette, same layout as the core, so you can switch those in and out as needed with the core. So one of the new features that I want to talk to you about is the shared key switches feature, and these are normal key switches, but they can span multiple patches. So if we load the core palette, the decorative palette, and the performance legato, let's pop that there. Now if we set them all to the same MIDI channel, and then where we're going to set this is in here, we're going to go shared key switches. Now set them all together. Okay, so now you'll see that we have a large section here of key switches. The idea of this is that if you want to use the same MIDI channel, you want to key switch across all 3 patches. You can see that the keyboard has changed now to reflect the key switches for all 3. If I play through key switches, you can see that it's key switching in the top one here. I just keep switching along, we're going through those, and then we're now in different sections. So here we're going along here, so we can switch between those ones there, and then if we carry on going up, we'll reach these legatos and go back down again. So obviously these, when you've got all volumes and you're using the combination brushes, then those are going to be populated across the whole thing. But you can see that using the single keyboard, you can switch between all three patches, and it switches off what you're not using. Now, one thing here is that just like normal key switches, if you hold 2 down, you can select 2 at the same time. So I've got longs and spiccato selected here, so you can hear both playing at the same time. And that, or staccato, I can select long and staccato, or indeed pizzicato, just to get my fingers in the right place there. So we selected long and pizzicato. So that's quite useful, and that's essentially the same as the normal key switches. So we've got multiple selection there as well. Basically, this acts as if there's a single patch loaded, but without the disadvantages, obviously, of you can't get all of this stuff loaded into a single patch in context. There's too many groups, too many samples. So that explains that. Also, if you want to move the key switches, you can move them all as a block as well as usual. So that's no problem there as well. So let's go back to the core palette. We've got also other ways of controlling things. We've got the UACC control, which is on version 2 now, and you can get the spec from the website. If you were to look at this, if I control click here, then you can see that that's automated to CC32. Now that's the default for the UACC controller. So the UACC basically is a way of setting which articulation you're on. There's a specification chart which we've got on the website, and then the number that you set this CC32 to in your DAW will determine which articulation is switched to. Now, one of the advantages of this over normal key switching is that if you imagine looking at your DAW and you've drawn in a bit of CC automation, you see that the line just continues, and almost every DAW will just pick up the current value for that CC. So wherever you start playing, it will switch to the correct articulation immediately. Whereas with key switches, obviously that's a key event, and so in order to be at the correct articulation, you have to play just before the appropriate key switch for a passage. So it's a different way of controlling things. It also has advantages in that you can use things like Lima to map things out on an iPad or an iPhone, and map buttons to specific CC32 messages. So that's pretty cool. And you can we've got another section actually as well, which is called UACC key switch. So if you want to use the UACC, just lock to UACC here. If you want to use the UACC key switch, you do that. Now you'll see that we have a key switch, which again you can move around, but you can program this as a normal key switch, but with the velocity being the number that you want to use the articulation. So instead of sending a number, instead of drawing in a number on CC32, you play this key, whichever the key switch is set to, in your DAW with the velocity of that number for the articulation. So now you may say, what's the point of that? Well, the point of that is that with the normal UACC, obviously you can't send 2 articulation messages at the same time, but with this you can overlap 2 key presses in your DAW simultaneously with different velocities, and that will be the same as if you hold down 2 key switches in the traditional key switching method. So you can select multiple articulations that way, but using the UACC definitions of the articulations. So sounds more complicated than it is, but we're just trying to make things as configurable as possible. So let's look at the combination patches. Now, I'm going to load the core palette for volumes 1 and 3. So obviously this assumes that you have volumes 1 and 3, and you can make it that I've got another YouTube tutorial just to show you how to combine your libraries into one main Sable library folder without accidentally overwriting samples. So check that out as well, because it just makes it easier. You won't have to keep searching for samples and battery saving and things like that. So here we can see that we've got in our core patch here everything from volumes 1 and 3 core sections. You can see if I load the just for comparison, if I load the core palette for volume 1 on its own, you can see that here in the longs, in the capability matrix, that the basic volume 1 only core palette has no Marcato attack and no Molto Vib, whereas because these articulations exist in the sample pool for volume 3, we've now incorporated them into this one articulation long here. So this is the combination patch, which gives you all of the features and functionality of volumes 1 and 3 in a single patch. We have these for all possible combinations that you might have. So we're in the violin ones at the moment, so there's no reference to volume 2 because volume 2 was violin 2s, violas and basses, but you can see that there are single patches for volumes 1, 3 and 4, and then in the combinations you've got 1 and 3, 1, 3 and 4, 1 and 4, 3 and 4 as well. So that's fairly comprehensive. If we look at it's the same obviously for all of the patches. So let's go back to combinations. If we load the legato performance and we load the 1 and 3, then you'll see that in here you have all of the legato options that are in volumes 1 and 3 combined. Now we've got the rules set here so that you have the normal soft portamento, medium fingered, hard bowed, but also we've got faster playing gives you the fast transition, and then fastest playing gives you this runs transition. So if we have a quick look at those, so like I said, we've got the portamentos between 1 and 19 on velocity, but if we look at this one, when you're playing between 90 and 200 milliseconds apart, that will trigger the fast, and then when you're playing between 0 and 89 milliseconds apart, it'll trigger the run. So if we play a normal normal stuff, then you've got the fingered, the portamento you heard at the beginning. If I play slightly faster, then you'll see it switching between the fast and then the runs. Now, if you want to turn these off, or indeed if you want to do these manually, you can do it in a number of different ways. As I described before, you can either purge the ones you don't want, you can Alt and click the arrow to turn them off, and then you can set up your own manual or key switch manually, something like that. You can customize them completely by holding command and clicking to change, as we just looked at the speed rule, to change, maybe you want it to trigger from something else, from a different controller or something like that. So there's lots of different ways to do that. If I, for example, just show you, I can turn off the purge there, purge those samples, and then if I play now, we're still getting the fast legato playing, but we're not getting the runs. So that will default back to the first articulation. You can then change this if you want to change this and turn that down so that it's between 1 and 200 milliseconds apart. Then we will get, if we do the same kind of fast, then that will be the fast legato that's triggered. So let's change that back to 90. Switch this one, unpurge this one, and then play, and you see you've got the runs articulation back again. So lots of different ways to do that. I hope I'm explaining that well, or at least adequately. It's worth pointing out that these are 5 different sets of recordings, so they're not envelope changes or anything like that, which is commonly used for a kind of adaptive legato. This is true different recordings performed in different ways, which we've spent years working on. What sounds best, how to reproduce that kind of sound that you get with a run, and so these are all completely different. So you're not hearing, when you go into the fast legato mode, it's not just altering the same samples in such a way that it sounds like it's, you know, going a little bit faster. They're actually performed in such a way that they sound more realistic. So that's the philosophy behind the extra legato stuff here. It's also why it takes such an enormously long time to program all of these tiny elements into the full patches. So that's a quick look at that. Let's go back to the core palette, and I'm going to talk to you about the other stuff that's new in here. So everything else that's new is the code base since Mural. So we've got our release control here, which controls the, you know, when you let go of the keys, you get a longer, slightly more blurry release. This defaults to the shortest, which is literally you hear the sound of the players stopping and the hall carrying on ringing for a short while. That's the normal sound in the hall. So if you want something which sounds slightly more kind of paddy or synthy, then you just drag that release slider up. We've got the tightness control for the shorts. Again, this cuts into your notes, or gives you a little bit more air at the front of the notes, depending on whether you want a slightly tighter start or whether you want to hear a little bit more than our default position for the starts of the notes. We've got the transpose trick built in, so if I can show you that, and this is to kind of thicken up the sound of the basic patch. So if we go into the spanner section for each one, and then we go into round robins here, then you've got layer +2. So actually we'll leave the first patch set to default. We'll set the second one to layer +2 and the third one to layer -2, and that's all set for you, ready to go. So no need to try and get your head. Always find it slightly confusing when I'm actually thinking about what I'm doing. That sets it all for you, so you don't need to worry about that. We've got, for the short notes, our release system. So if we go to let's go into the staccatos in here, so no release triggers is the default setting. You've got timed shorts, which gives you it's obviously more obvious and noticeable on the marcatos, but you've got timed short articulations here. So literally as quickly as you can let go, it will release. If you go to the untimed shorts, these are not measured out by us. There might be certain circumstances under which you want to use these, but you do note that if you hold the key down and then let go, you'll hear the release trigger. So that's just put in there just for completeness. The one that you would usually want to use if you want to get a slightly shorter note is the timed shorts, because that's our best guess as to when the note actually finishes, painstakingly coded into each patch. So that's everything, I think, on the new functionality. You've also got a little bit of extra information down here. It tells you which version you're on. I think we've been through everything else. Yeah, so that's it. So I hope you enjoyed that walk through the new functionality of Sable. Check out my other YouTube walkthrough, which shows you how to combine patches. It's fairly straightforward, just to copying in all your sample stuff together so it's in the right folder structure. Fairly straightforward, but just be careful that you don't delete samples accidentally while you're doing that. And there we go. Thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye bye.